So they just added VORTEX in the Gear Hub for in-game currency. It is A coins, it is tier 8, and so the question is, should you get it, and what weapons does it work well with if you do? VORTEX plays a lot like Nomad due to its ability, Nanobot Field. So once activated, the mech speed increases, and you also get an AoE that reduces the damage that you and your allies take by 50%. So basically, you are effectively doubling your HP. Very importantly, this does apply to mods as well, specifically Perimeter Multilayer. Each of your layers will have twice the HP while the ability is active, and that is a very, very good thing to make note of. The same thing applies to Nomad or Parasite. So that's just a feature of damage resistance. It's not VORTEX specifically. But essentially, for a period of time, you become a super tank. That period of time is 8 seconds, which is not particularly long, and the cooldown is somewhat long. So by the time your ability ends, if you are in the front lines, it's pretty much GG. You are dead. The same thing kind of applies to Nomad as well. Once the resistance wears off, you are a very easy target. Now I say that VORTEX plays a lot like Nomad simply because it is relatively fast and it has that super tank damage sponge type thing where you just kind of run and do as much damage as you can. It's going to be very difficult for one individual enemy to take you out. However, you will probably go down after your ability is over. It's essentially a kamikaze mech. Because of this, your top 2 weapons for VORTEX are going to be Stormrack and Revoker. Now, I recommend Stormrack over Revoker, not because it's better for the kamikaze playstyle, but simply because it has better range. Since you don't have a dash, it can be a bit more difficult and take a bit longer to actually close that distance to be able to use Revokers. But Revoker is definitely the better choice in modes like free-for-all, 2v2, and some 5v5 maps as well. With that said, there are 2 things that VORTEX can take advantage of that Nomad does not, and that is the longer resistance time of 8 seconds, whereas Nomad gets at most 6, and also the fact that the ability has a radius, which will also reduce the damage that your allies take. This makes VORTEX a lot better at using more passive suppressive weapons compared to Nomad. My top 3 would be Minigun, Overdriver, and Podgun. And normally I recommend, in terms of implants, to use whichever one is going to modify the larger number. So if your ability cooldown is longer than your ability duration, then you should use ability cooldown implant. If your duration is longer, you should use a duration implant. In the case of VORTEX, extending that duration as long as possible is key to keeping you alive, because as soon as the ability goes down, then you're gonna die really quickly. So I always recommend duration over cooldown for pretty much every weapon. Alternatively, you could go even more passive and use like Gemini or even Strike Rocket, and then only use your ability to either get vantage points or just to help out your teammates. In either case, it's pretty apparent that VORTEX is best used with competent teammates. Bots obviously don't really count because they're gonna walk out and die no matter what you do. But being able to double the HP of allies that are nearby can be pretty useful. On the topic of allies, if you were to use this ability on, let's say, an ally Aegis or Blockhorn with any type of HP-based shield that it places on the ground, so Puma technically as well, then the resistance field of VORTEX will actually double the HP of those shields as well, which can be pretty useful. But ultimately, this is a tier 8 mech, so I have to talk about it in context of what are people using at tier 8, or basically at max level. Anybody who's in tier 8 probably has maxed or near maxed enemies that they're fighting. So you're dealing with a lot of surges, a lot of revokers, a lot of eclipses, a lot of, deathwalkers, all the classic meta stuff. Now, Nomad is, of course, very strong. How strong is VORTEX compared to Nomad? I would say it's significantly worse, and the main reason is because of the speed. 18 kph is very, very bad. Yes, you will get a 100% speed boost while that is active. So you'll be moving at 36 kilometers an hour, which is very fast. It's faster than anything else can move, but that is just base move speed. That is not a dash. Dashes are much more useful, and the reason they're useful is because they can quickly close distance so that you can use something like Provoker, or you can quickly get out of a situation as well. And that is the thing that VORTEX lacks. It does trade that speed for additional tankiness, though. Even though Nomad's resistance is 60%, which is more than VORTEX's 50%, VORTEX is overall tankier just because the base HP is so much higher. So you can use this as a form of counter to Eclipse, and so long as nobody has any obvious mod or weapon advantage, then a VORTEX versus a Nomad, the VORTEX should win most of the time. And so that sounds really good, and it sounds like VORTEX is potentially better than Nomad even, but I have to say that it's not. It's really not. I do really like VORTEX, but I wouldn't even call it a top 10 mech. The Kamikaze playstyle itself is suboptimal because just by using a Deathwalker, you can get a Kamikaze playstyle without actually dying. You keep getting resurrected, and you don't have to actually lose your mech to do it. As well as you don't really have any beacon pushing power. You can't quickly close distance on enemies that are like 50-60 meters away. You have to run at them and hope that you can close that distance. Even though your base speed is pretty good, it's not nearly as fast as a dash. And even though VORTEX is good individually and it can easily 1v1 most things, it does not do particularly well against the current meta. Specifically Surge and Deathwalker. Like I said, Deathwalker has the same similar playstyle, but the VORTEX can take a bit more damage before it dies. However, the Deathwalker just goes back to where it started and it doesn't actually fully die. So he can do that way more times than the VORTEX can. And ultimately, the VORTEX is going to lose against a Deathwalker. The Surge can EMP you for at least 4 seconds. And a double Revoker Surge, even though you have effectively double your HP, double your mod HP, along with the ability damage that you're dealing toward the Surge, they're still probably going to kill you. With just with the EMP. Like a double Revoker Surge, it deals so much damage that it's probably still going to kill you. And so it's pretty difficult to deal with that. You're also very weak to Hemlock, also pretty weak to Lacewing, and those are just a lot of classic meta mechs, so ultimately it's not really worth running a VORTEX. I have not seen a VORTEX used competitively in a very long time, and there's a good reason for that. So, if I'm being honest, no, you probably should not get VORTEX unless you really want it and you already have Nomad. If you already have Nomad, you already have these two, and you already have Hemlock as well. Well, I mean, Hemlock and VORTEX cost different currencies, so it doesn't really matter, but if you really want it, and so long as you've already got Nomad, there's no harm in it. It is better than Bastion. I mean, like, not by a lot, but it is probably better than Bastion. So if you really want it, then go for it, but yeah, ultimately, I would not say that it is a great pick. But it could serve you relatively well until you get, like, a Deathwalker or something. But that's just my take. Once again, this is in the context of like maxed late game stuff, so if you have one at lower rank and you're lower SP, then it's going to do a bit better. But otherwise, yeah, let me know if you plan on getting this and what you plan on running it with. Otherwise, that will be it for me. Appreciate y'all. Take care.